order. And Scott, if you don't mind doing the prayer.
All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this wonderful day. We praise you for the mighty God you are. We thank you for our community, Lord. We thank you for each person in it, Lord. We just pray for wisdom, that you would just guide and direct us as we discuss the matters, Lord. Just bless each one for their time here, Lord, and just help us to serve those that you've entrusted to us, Lord. We just thank you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is discuss and possibly approve the minutes of the July 14th, 2025 meeting. It's right in your packet.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
July.
Jay, if you would take the vote.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordahl,
Yes.
Dirk.
Yes.
Okay, our next item is a presentation from Mays County Conservation District and the Fish and Wildlife representatives regarding grant opportunities. You guys want to come up? Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good. My name is Justin Westover. I'm with the Fish and Wildlife Service, specifically the Partners for Fish and Wildlife program. We've been working with the City of Pryor and the Oklahoma Conservation Commission, specifically Mays County Conservation District, on, oh hi Jamie, she came up with me, on a project just north of here that was just named the Giles, right? Mm-hmm. Giles Park, that is being created in as an outdoor classroom of sorts. And it's going to be used by the public, Pryor Public Schools, and there is a specific barn, a 100-year-old barn on that property that is going to be refurbished and cleaned out to become a specific meeting place for schools to use. And then the surrounding land is going to be used as kind of an area for schools to collect samples and learn about, yes, thank you, ecological processes, Oklahoma's natural resources, Oklahoma's cultural resources. So the reason we're here is because the city is already, at least Mayor Doyle has already planned on entering into an agreement with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So what that agreement looks like is we provide a certain amount of funds to help reestablish specifically this barn. The catch, if you will, with ours is that everything has to be paid up front and we reimburse the agreed funds, right? So what the process is once it's approved and once we're ready to move forward, the city will sign it, and then ground will be broken and the project will actually begin. Once this agreement is actually signed, that agreed amount of funds will be allocated to you. It won't go anywhere else. Once the project is completed, it is guaranteed to come to you. The only thing that we have to ask is that the money is already budgeted for that, if that makes any sense. So really what we're here to ask is if that's okay with y'all, if that can be approved. If you have any questions, you can ask myself. Jamie, you have anything you'd like to add?
So is this still for the 8,000 or the 16,000?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, yeah. So that agreement will say 16,000 because it's a cost share. So the city will pay 16,000 up front, and then we will reimburse 8,000 of it.
Okay. I'm not saying I'm not for this.
It's
not a good idea, but you keep saying the city.
Right.
And when we looked at this before, my understanding was this agreement needed to be with the owner of the property. Correct. The owner of the property is the city of Pryor. It's not the Economic Development Trust.
Right.
So it's not us. It's the city of Pryor.
Okay.
So we could So we could provide would there be anything in the agreement that would bar us from providing the funds?
No, absolutely.
And then with a separate agreement with the city and then being reimbursed?
No, that's a great question. So yeah, the funds that are provided by the city can be provided in any way. That can be through the EDTA, yeah.
And if we did that, I mean, again, I think what I'm hearing is I'd want reimbursement from the city, but it seems to me, instead of doing step, just do step and get the money from the city.
Right. That would have to be directed to Mayor Doyle, I would think, or the city council. Yeah. That's something that since as a federal employee, I can't.
Oh, I understand. I mean, I'm not trying to complicate it, but
Right.
it seems like we're creating 2 or 3 extra steps
Right.
when just deal with the owner of the property.
Right.
And hopefully they're willing to do this too. I mean, I think it's a good idea.
Of course, yeah.
Provides, it's just, I think it's getting it from the right entity.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
And then in that agreement, that we saw before, it looked like it was a 10-year
Yeah. So let me.
period before it was reimbursed?
No. So let me expand on that. It won't be reimbursed after 10 years. It's reimbursed immediately following the completion. The 10-year maintenance agreement is specifically
They'll keep
just
the barn
right.
as an outdoor classroom area for 10 years.
Right. Yeah. So it's a maintenance agreement to where the area has to be kept in those specific, the specific description of what we agreed would be completed for 10 years. So that would mean you can't bulldoze the barn down, pretty much.
Okay.
And I think one thing we have is if the city has enough money to be able to cover the costs up front. Whereas like the 8,000 that comes from the city's end, it can be in kind, like labor, any work, any equipment that's used out there, that all counts towards their 8,000.
So is it, does this city or city-related entities have to come up with the full 16?
No,
8,000 gets reimbursed and then 8,000 is in kind from the city?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
we brought Jerry too, from GRDA.
Sorry. I'm gonna butt in now too.
Yeah. Of course.
No, and Mayor and I have talked about that. That's kind of
Okay.
part of having this conversation is figuring out
I understand.
what all there is here, because it
Yeah.
sounds like it's maybe a little more complex than what we talked about a second ago.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, I'm gonna butt in. I'm Jerry Fleming. I'm with the Grand River Dam Authority. But concerning the in-kind, correct me if I'm wrong, but for example, if I come out and do work out there as an employee of GRDA, then that can count as in-kind match. So it doesn't specifically have to come from the city itself.
Right. Yes.
It can be from other partners. So Jamie's time, my time, anything that we put in can also count towards that $8,000 match.
Right. It can also be in the form of supplies. It can be in the form of volunteer hours, like they were saying.
In engineering for the
Engineering,
structural
right.
integrity of the building.
Right.
Yeah, so I get that part of the in-kind, but it's 16,000
Mhm.
total.
Mhm.
Does the city have to come up with 8,000 cash and 8,000 in-kind? Or is it 16,000 grant and the city has to match 8,000 of that, whether it's cash or in-kind, and then Fish and Wildlife provides the other 8?
It would be the latter. So, on paper, it would be the city matches 8,000, whether that's in kind or in cash or however it is. And
Okay.
Then our 8,000 is reimbursed afterwards. So if you need to go above that 8,000, that 8,000 in an in kind or whatever, and you need to do that in cash, that works. We would just come in after the work is completed and hand you a check for $8,000.
So I think one of the concerns with the city, I think, is the coming up with the cash out of pocket for the city technically would be the 8,000 that would get reimbursed. And it may be just coming up with that 8,000 up front instead of like having to pay it out and then waiting for the reimbursement. Is that,
Right, yeah, that's
What I
a more
understand.
concise way to say
Yeah.
it.
So what you need from the city up front is $8,000,
Right.
not 16,
Right,
okay?
right,
But the total project is 16.
correct.
And where does the other 8 come from?
in-kind services or cash.
Using
Or,
But if they can't get in-kind, then they're still on the hook for
So
all
you
the
just
cash
need to
up to
come up with
$16,000.
$16,000 up front, and then whatever in-kind services that the city or GRDA or whoever is a part of that group, then you'll take out of that 16,000, it may drop to 12,000.
right,
You see what I'm saying? I mean, because you can't assume you're gonna get 8,000 in kind.
Right,
You gotta work, hope for the best, but plan for the worst, and the worst is gonna be 16,000 out of your pocket.
right,
And then
with 8,000 of it.
without 8,000 for sure coming back
Right.
from Fish and Wildlife.
Right, right.
Then the other 8 could be in kind, but you don't know what it's gonna be in kind, so you just gotta have the 16,000 capital up front. I think is what it's boiled down to. And has the council approved this?
no, not that I know of.
No, we're starting here.
Okay.
It was starting here to get an idea of what the grant
Right.
would really look like, because I think the first time it was presented, it was just 8,000 that we would have to worry about.
Well, and again, we're talking about we, I think it's the city of Pryor. It's the city of Pryor's property.
Right, right. And the
And the city of
agreement,
Pryor would be more likely to provide in-kind services as opposed to Jared might go out there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, does the city have any $16,000 in their capital account to be able to foot this?
and I think the reason we are here is because you're correct in that agreement is signed directly with the city because the city is the landowner.
Right.
We work with landowners.
Right.
But the landowner can procure the funds in any way that they see necessary, and so Mayor Doyle is coming here to procure those funds.
Well, I understand.
Okay, just making sure.
That doesn't mean, yeah, I know that, I understand.
I mean, actually, just the agenda item now is just to get an explanation for the grant.
Right,
And then, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think then the plan was for us to understand the grant, and then I think you to talk with
Correct.
city council, get the scope of the project, see if that's what they want to do, and then it would potentially come back to us for a request to fund that grant,
That would be
and then get reimbursed.
emphasis on the potential, I mean,
Yeah.
depending on where council goes with that, so.
right.
So where did, if you don't mind me asking, where did the 16,000 number come from? Did somebody do some studies or somebody do some estimates?
Yeah, that's the traditional number that we normally go with. We work on a cost share basis.
Right.
So when we do outdoor classroom funds, we assume a 50%
Right.
cost share. And that's normally where other schools and other people
So the
land it.
16,000 is this from past experience?
Right,
basically?
exactly, yeah. And I'll be the first to admit that sometimes those numbers can be outdated, so
Right.
we can talk about it more.
And how long are those numbers good for?
What do you mean?
So, till the end of this calendar year?
Okay.
Does it start of this fiscal year?
It would
Is
start-
tomorrow?
Right, so
Or,
the project would have to be completed by the end of calendar year 2026.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
There's
plenty of
time,
to
yeah,
do this. We're not jumping
right,
through
exactly.
a shotgun right now, trying
Right.
to get this thing pushed through.
Correct.
Perfect.
But correct me if I'm wrong, with the current administration, there's,
Right, so, yeah, that does bring up the other thing is we are still in the process of even procuring our budget. This is the latest it's ever been. Last year was the latest, and we got it in June. So we can't guarantee anything until I know that I have these numbers. Now, our numbers are being reviewed right now, and in the past they've been done within the end of the month. So I'm hopeful, and I can say with high confidence that by the time the city decides on whether or not to move forward with this, we will know if we have everything. So I wouldn't have the city sign the agreement until I know that I can give them $8,000.
Makes sense.
Right.
What happens if so the 16,000, there's, other than historical knowledge, there's no basis in it?
Mhm.
What happens if you start work and the project's 20,000?
Mhm.
Does it then become a cost sharing of the 20, or is Fish and Wildlife locked in at 8?
We're locked in at 8 right now.
That's the max you can do, or?
Yes, unless we go for different management opportunities. So, and if we went a different route, then it would have to be pushed for another year because we already have all of our funds allocated for this year, and I had planned for 8,000. But we also cost share for wetland development, native seed plantings, pollinator gardens, riparian area, habitat enhancements, and those all have a higher cost share. And so if we wanted to look at working on a different area of the property and not just this barn, then that could be something that we could move forward with. And that caps at 20,000 on our end. And that is normally about a 65% cost share.
Okay.
So let me ask you one question real quick. In-kind services.
Mhm.
My staff has extended a water line out there to get them services for water.
Okay.
That was like a year or two ago.
Okay.
Could that be considered in-kind now, or does it have to be once this contract's signed?
It would have to relate directly to what the project is. So,
If he takes water over to the barn area?
right, if the water goes over to the barn, then yeah, that can be in-kind service.
Oh, I've already got water there. I'm done.
Okay, right, yeah.
I was just wondering if I could piggyback off what I did a year or two ago.
I thought your water only went to that water spigot that's out in front of
It wraps around.
Okay.
We go from the start of the dog pins and wrap around the backside. So there's a few, I think, spigots around. I don't know, I have to look. I can't recall.
Okay.
It's been a
Well,
year or two ago.
we can look at it and I'll
Yeah.
have to get back with you
I
on
mean,
that.
I was just trying to help the city out, you know.
Right.
'Cause we've already expended those funds.
Right,
and,
yeah, I
you know,
understand.
Crews and whatnot, I just,
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's a good point, because that can make a huge difference.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's what this is discovery.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, I
don't
understand.
take offense to any of the
Oh, I'm
questions,
not.
it's just trying to figure it out.
Listen,
And
I work for the federal government. I get a lot.
Enough said.
So has there been a cost estimate from a contractor that the project would cost 16,000 or less?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so we're not sure how much the project will cost, we just know that we have $16,000 to work with.
Right, right.
Well, like, one question is, like, on that engineering study, that structural, to see if it's structurally sound, I thought you had a guy that was gonna come to town, Marty was talking to you about it?
It could be probably Bridges, maybe what you're thinking about. Is that what you guys are talking about, that structural engineer guy from Main Street?
That would be-
Yeah, I'm not sure if it would do that.
We
much.
couldn't lap that in there, or?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
So, Mr. Lamar, you,
Yes, I've got several questions. One is, who came up with this project? I mean, you haven't come up with an architect or a structural engineer to even look at the barn yet, so you don't know what kind of scope of work needs to be done?
I
And
was brought into this by the NRCS, and so I don't know.
So there's really no homework been done yet on this project?
That's what we're trying to get the funds to do, is do all that.
Okay, so the funds, the $16,000 is gonna pay for the structural engineer and the architect then to
Yes.
design the building, not to do the work?
It can pay for the structural engineer to make sure that it's sound. As long as it's sound, there's not a lot of work that needs to be done.
So what's the scope of this 100-some-year-old structure going to be a classroom? I mean, what is your intent? Is it gonna need heat and air? Is it gonna need insulation? Is it gonna need flooring? Is it gonna need, what's the scope of the work on what the classroom objective is?
No, the classroom objective is that it won't be a fully enclosed structure. It will have dirt floors, it will have.
An open air type?
Correct,
facility.
more or less out of the rain and out of the sun kind of thing.
And then once the facility is remodeled and such, then who is going to maintain it and pay for the upkeep of it and et cetera?
As far as our agreements are concerned, it would be the landowner, and now how the landowner does that is up to them.
Okay, so with the city of Pryor being the landowner, and I would think this would come under and it's been designated officially as a park, I would assume that this should come under the park department's purview, maybe.
Right, so as we get moving forward on this whole park, Terry, and this is kind of stuff you and I've talked about in the past, that whole property will find ownership in one of the departments, probably the parks. As of right now, that's all stuff that we've still got to get to. We're there. The whole purpose to this, like Adam said, is the discovery of the funds. This isn't the logistics of down the road. This is if we can even get that stuff moving. So there's a lot that still has to be hammered out. This is just one of the steps. So the idea though is that we're not building a 4-floor structure that's gonna have, you know, walls and maker spaces and microwaves. It's a shelter is what it will be. And it's just needs to be evaluated, but all of that comes at a cost. So if we can't get the funding even lined out for that, then we know that that's not a route that we're even gonna entertain.
But the main thing is that the structural integrity of the building needs to be looked at from a structural engineer. So is that gonna be you all that hires that person, or the city is gonna hire that person?
It would be the city if we can get that funding. That's what it all boils down to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this all started, I think, from a meeting that we all had out at the Conservation District a year ago, and asked Jamie about some funding opportunities, so.
And that was about when I was involved, it was May
Okay.
2024.
And trying to figure that part out. So maybe Mayor, the next step is maybe we should contact that same engineer that looked at the
Right, the
Graham.
360. Yep.
And see what kind of price they would have to go look at that building.
That's what I was thinking as we were talking about that.
And then we
so.
could bring that back potentially here next time to discuss that piece, and then, or go to the city.
Yeah, or eventually get it in front of the city, because
Yeah.
the city is the landowner.
Well, if we get what I'm saying is if we get the packet together that talks about the funding, the packet that talks about the engineer's costs, then Mayor has something to go to either the Parks Department first or the city council and say, here's what this will all look like. I mean, I know it seems a little muddled, but I think this is ultimately part of us trying to get a process together so that it looks like it's a well-presented package when it gets to city council. And maybe that means some of the ugly discussion questions happen in these committees instead of when it, gets to council and you have it on an agenda for 4 months just trying to ask simple questions. Is that,
And it'll also need bathrooms out there, restrooms. That's another big one.
oh, we need bathrooms in a lot of places right now.
So one question for the GRD rep, does GRD happen to have any grant money along for something similar to these types of projects that you can find?
Mostly what I have been able to do, and I've done it with the city of Tahlequah as well, is bring Justin in, to try to work for that. However, GRDA does, because Pryor is a customer, GRDA does have, funding, and I don't know exactly what the dollar amount is through their customer. I'm in the ecosystems department, so whole different department. But, if the city wanted to request funding from GRDA, they do have a form to do that. Whether they can fund that kind of thing, I'm not sure. Typically, I know a lot of people, so I try to connect
You're
people
connected.
together.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Connecting the dots.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So I think our next step is to get a hold of 360 and
Yeah, we'll do
start
that
building
and see
that
where we
packet,
go.
kind of what we're doing on Graham. Okay, thank you.
I have one quick question, and maybe this is for you. Have you all ever worked with Garver Engineering?
Garter?
Garver.
Garver.
I have not. Have you?
You have?
Yeah.
As the city?
Not as a city, but as a private engineer.
Okay, because they actually sometimes offer services free of charge for certain projects. And that might be another option. Like, that could also then be counted towards your in-kind. And there may be, I don't know what engineering firms you normally work with. I have connections at Garver and Guernsey. So it's possible I could even,
So my recommendation would be to get her and his email, and send them in contact, you're in contacts to them too, and then
Yeah.
maybe they can.
Yeah, if you'll send me Garver's,
That
Yeah.
would be.
I
Yeah.
will.
yeah, I'd love to.
Again, that's what I do.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
guys.
Thanks.
Okay, on to our next item. Discussion and possible action to increase the budget for Bluegrass and Barbecue Festival. The current budget is $75,000. The recommendation is to increase the budget to $100,000. So $75,000 is what we budgeted last year, and that's what we had started this year's budget with. And when we did that, I talked to everybody and said, as this goes along, we may need to move the budget up. One of the things that we did last year where there were EDTA funds that were expended over and above that budget, which added up to just under 14,000. So that was the insurance for the liability, the cancellation insurance, the music licenses, some advertisements, sales tax, and then some overtime for the police and fire department and police and street. So kind of wrapping all of that into the festival budget instead of a portion of it coming from the downtown tax and then a portion of it coming from EDTA funds to kind of wrap all of that into the festival budget. So that was, like I said, about 14,000. We did move up the entertainment budget, if you remember a few meetings ago. So that budget went from 43,000 up to 55,000. So again, this taking it up by 25,000 would just be to encompass everything within the festival budget and to bring it all from Fund 68. So the next agenda item, we'll discuss that, but the idea would be that that would be funded from Fund 68 and not from EDTA funds. So we would take the 75 that we already have, add in 25,000 from the Fund 68.
So last year we budgeted 75 and then spent an additional 14.
Out of the EDTA
How
funds.
much did we get out of sponsorships?
Last year, we out of sponsorships and what we sold, we got back 75,000.
Okay.
About 46,000 was sponsorships this year, and we just kicked off that campaign. We're 60 days out, so this year we're at right about 20,000 in sponsorships. Still have several of those out for returning sponsors from last year. Sales should be about the same. That's also going to include vendor fees. The vendors have been contacted with the fees. Bridget's been working with them. You said we have somewhere 25 that's pretty solid, and another 15 to 20 that's interested, right? We get up to about.
At a total, I'll have to look, it's either 42 or 46 total.
Vendors.
Vendors.
Mm-hmm. And they do pay a fee, and that comes to the EDTA.
Were you guys gonna have one stage or two stages?
One stage.
One stage this year.
Yeah, and the stage pricing last year was 22,500. This year, that was with 2 stages and 3 sound systems. This year, to do 1 stage and 1 sound system, it's still going to be about 20,000, and that's just in the increase in the costs. Porta Johns, they've gone up. The bids have gone up about 500 from what they were last year, so just a continual increase.
How are we advertising this? Have we started? Because
Yes.
I'll be honest, I was driving to Tulsa early this morning and I listened to 99.5 and Tahlequah's Bluegrass Festival was on there. They're giving away, VIP tickets, so.
Mm-hmm. So
We're about a month after them, right?
Yes, yeah, month and a half. Our marketing radio program started last Friday. So we are going to lag the one in Tahlequah because they're pushing it.
Right.
This one just started with the Joplin market. So it'll do Joplin.
Basically it'll hit the 4 states from about Peculiar, Missouri South to the Bentonville general area, and then Springfield to intermittently here where we're at. And I think what we realized when we looked last year at a lot of the placer data that we got in was there was a majority of the audience from that region. We also know that they cover a lot of the demographic that covers those listeners. And so tremendously cheaper to do broadcasting from that radio station headquarters than anything we could imagine out of Tulsa. So we're going to start there and take that route.
And we started the conversations with 6 and 23 about getting into their community pieces like the community porch, I think that Channel 6 does,
Yeah.
and getting into that as we get closer. And PryorCreekEvents.com is our website. So you can go look at that and see the lineup, as well as the sponsors and some information on vendors.
as well as the marketing piece from Driven Digital.
Yes, and then we have a marketing piece that Driven Digital will start doing the social media. That should start
Any day now.
any day. They're
Literally any day.
developing all of it currently.
So you tell people just to share it, just keep sharing it.
Share and keep share. There is a paid piece to that social piece that Driven Digital is doing.
So there shouldn't be any more expenses associated with this.
There should not be, no.
If it is, I think Mill Property should jump in and be a prime investor, sponsor.
So any other questions on that? Not, I need a motion to increase that budget.
So move.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you very much. Jay, if you'd do the vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sorrell,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Next item is discussion and possible action to recommend council action regarding a transfer in the amount of $25,000 from Fund 68 to the EDTA festival account to fund an increase in the Bluegrass and Barbecue Festival budget.
So move.
Second.
Jay, if you would take the vote.
Sorrell,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes. Next item, discussion and possible action regarding the 2026 Freedom Fest fireworks show, including but not limited to securing the date for the fireworks show with Rainbow Fireworks and paying a security deposit if required. And Mayor passed out the copy of the contract. Again, because of the liability and everything, this contract is with the city of Pryor. We provide the funding, we being the EDTA. In this, and Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it requires a $1,000 deposit to secure the date. And then we would pay the remainder after the first of the year of $12,500. Our contract would stay, I mean, half of it would be due in January of 2026, which is $12,500.
Correct. So in this letter from Carthia Lehman, she does say that they require the $1,000 deposit to secure that with the contract, because next year will be the, how do they say that, the 250th, it's a quincentennial, yeah. They're filling up pretty fast. Now, when I talked to Dale Reagan, he wasn't as concerned about the 1,000 as getting the contract in place, since he's kind of a local guy here. But I think it would behoove us to just go ahead and do as the contract asks, and if we can do that, get
Well, I
that.
think the appropriate motion would be that we move to recommend to the city council, city of Pryor, that they ASAP sign the contract as presented, and that the $1,000 security will be funded by the EDTA.
So did the city get reimbursed any for the malfunction?
No, so we actually have about $5,000 worth of that show that did not go off. So that will be added, and that is being stored by Rainbow right now, and that will be added to our show next year, unless we decide somewhere else in the year between now and then we want to use it for that. So they've made some offers, some suggestions. They will use it where we need it. It's ours. We own it. So.
And they have put that into writing to us that says that this is the dollar amount worth, and you can add it into next year's show or use it in between.
Bluegrass.
Fireworks and banjos.
What more can you want? Okay, so we have that was a motion, right, Fred?
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Jay, if you would take the vote.
Dirk,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sorrell.
Yes.
Okay, and the last item is discussion regarding the Graham Community Building Structural Assessment Report from 360 Engineering. The report is included in the meeting packet. So we did get that structural engineer report back. I did want to get that into all of your hands. As a reminder, we know this is going to be a methodical process. The engineer report came back and said that the structure was sound. Of course, they, have a caveat in there. If they start pulling panels off the wall or flooring up, there could be some minor items that need to be replaced along the way. Our next step in this process is bringing in the architect from Main Street, and we're working on getting a date for that. Bring them in, have them look at it, and start having those discussions with groups like the Arts and Humanities Council to see, what work do they see that needs to be done. We've talked about bringing in some outside parties, like Guthrie that we talked to that had redone some of their buildings and put in some shared market spaces and had good success with it. So while we would all like let's just start throwing money at it, that doesn't seem to be like the best idea. We should be methodical with it, and we should come up with a plan that's a written plan that we present to City Council that says here's A to B, and here's what we think you can get out of it. I know we've had some discussions with Marty about some different, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, about some different options for kitchens and some redesigns there. And she's brought some things to the table about, well, if you did a kitchen this way, then you could rent that out for, home, what word am I looking for here, Marty? Home kitchens, I don't know. Shared kitchen space?
Shared kitchen
Yeah.
space.
There we go.
So if they want to, for instance, if somebody's selling right now under a farmer's market, and they're under the cottage laws, but then they want to maybe can goods or breads or things like that, if it's under the right kitchen and it's certified under our health department, then they could actually rent that space to prepare those, and so you can have an offset. The other thing is, in several places with partnership with TSET and Main Street throughout Oklahoma, we have several who have also allowed, let's say I want to do a restaurant and I want to have breakfast and lunch options, then I could rent the space maybe 2 days a week or 3 days a week during this time frame, try it out, see if this community would accept it, and then after that, whatever time frame that's allotted, then I will start renting a place downtown or another, you can build some. So it's like an incubator for those restaurants, and the one I personally have visited is up in Ponca City, and they've had great success with that. Guthrie's another one, and so, and there's some monies that will open up in September for planning and development that if you guys needed it through TSEC would be available.
And some of those discussions in that planning group have been, okay, if we did something like that, what would it look like to manage it? What does the upkeep side of it become? Just kind of like we just talked about with the Giles property. There's some really great ideas out there, but we've got to figure out how to fund them and make them ongoing and not just put in an expensive kitchen that then we don't have a plan for what happens after that. So that's where we have to bring in some of those stakeholders, and that's kind of that next phase, and talk to the Arts and Humanities or Main Street or the Chamber about what that management piece would look like. Because the last thing we want to do is put in a $500,000 kitchen and then not know what's going to happen with it.
It seems to me, in the request we got from the city council, this is just the first step. And I think what this answers is that the structure of the building is not as bad as possibly we feared it to be. It needs some tender, loving care, but it doesn't need to come down. And so I think the next step is, okay, we've got that answer. We need to have architects look at it. We need to understand what potentially could be done to it to make it functional and work for this community, but also then get an idea of what that cost may be with some suggestions back to the council of here's maybe step 1, 2, or 3 you could do with it to make this building functional. Here's how you may get funding for it, or here's the funding you're going to need to get it in that shape. I think that's where we're at. We're now past, it's not so structurally terrible that it needs to come down or doesn't have major structural problems.
But the key, Fred, if you read the report, the key is not to let it sit there and get any
Oh,
worse.
I understand,
Correct.
that's why
That's
it needs the care taken,
That's
it's
the
like,
key. We got this, abate the issues that are going with it right now, or it's gonna get worse, and then it's gonna get to the point where there's no return.
and that's like what's gonna happen with the old courthouse many years ago. You know, that courthouse was not maintained, and that's where God's situation just had to come down. So yeah, taking time to start looking at it, but at least we know we don't
Yeah, I
have
was
major
shocked.
structural issues
Right.
now. But we need to start getting the answers of, okay, what care does it need to bring it back up to where it needs to be? And give you all some, I think what we're gonna look at is ideas of how those funds can be raised, or the amount of funds it's gonna need, and the different things that can be done, like with Adam said, without, putting in a $500,000 kitchen. I think that thing can become functional for the community without doing that, and still get the building back to a structure where it'll be fine.
Speaking of taking care of the structure as it is now, that is a question I have. So one of the things that they looked at pretty heavily is there is a space inside where you can see that water has come in and has damaged the paneling. Pulled that back, there's brick behind it, they went up, they pulled the ceiling tiles up, they looked at the roof, that water was not coming from the roof. We went outside, we walked around, there's a downspout for the guttering that's just right there, that a tree had been in front of, that had been cut down a few months ago. When that tree's gone and you look behind the guttering, the mortar has been worn out behind that building, and that's where all that
Seepage.
water was coming straight in. It's overloading the gutter, coming straight into the building. So that is a request that we've already put in, I believe, that city maintenance take care of that piece, which from what the structural report showed and what they looked at when they got up there, that will take care of that water piece that was coming in. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we looked at that, and it was almost, I don't even know how obvious, we overlooked that. And so when we found that's where it was seeping through, I think the next step is, we get that remediated, that's fine, we'll get that. And it looks like that drainage has been pulled away from the building a little bit so that it's not right up on it. But, on the inside where we have the water damage has gone through, Terry did us a favor and pulled it down to the base wall, and it looks like it's the stucco material, that plaster material that the main hallway is. It may behoove us to, and that's where that architect or those others will come in to say, just pull that paneling off and go with that base wall. Save yourself the hassle of the mold and mildew of those wood products. And then we have a functional building. Then we just need to make sure that we work that on a time frame that's in accordance with things we have going on in our community, so that we're not shutting that down for long periods of time.
And we had them, they looked at some of the other things that were brought up, just to make sure you guys know we did look at those, where the city had used over the Graham Community Hall as storage. So they walked around in that. There were probably 10 people up there. They found that to be structurally sound. It's all metal trusses, arched trusses.
No signs of mold.
No signs of mold, no anything. They had some recommendations of how we could redesign that and open up and expose those metal arches. So with 360's recommendation that would be a really cool piece to expose and to show. The discussions that had been had about there being a concrete floor on the second floor that was cracking, had them look at that specifically. It turns out that that's just the top of the old vault that was in there. So that was all what you would expect from a concrete vault of that age. It was not structurally unsound. Those were kind of the big items. Mr. Elliott, or you guys have any questions or thoughts?
Well, I think the mayor just spoke to it, but I was gonna raise the question that the inspector referred to what I thought was taking all the paneling off in the main room and seeing if there are any leaks there, and I think he was just talking about.
Yeah, the spot there, that spot there on the south wall where the water damage has been pretty tremendous. We were really just kind of out there talking in that area and noticed that, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, what I got from it was, he was suggesting that that's the first thing you do, is my question would be, okay, like you said, you've got to do that, but you've got like the art show and the Santa Claus thing that go on in that room. So how long does that take to do? Can you do that between two big functions? And what's that gonna cost?
That's part of getting those stakeholders in and asking what those dates are and what the beginning and ending is, and getting a contractor and saying, okay, how quickly can you do it? What's the cost of it? And then timing it. It may be something that timing-wise needs to start in January, because that's when a couple of those big things are over, and get it done during that time period. Or come to those stakeholders that do use it with alternative solutions. You know, hey, we're gonna be able to do this, we're gonna be able to open that up and really do a solid job on the fellowship hall portion of it, but here's where we need to hold some of these other events for one cycle just to get that work done. The other big item was the kitchen. We'd heard a lot of talk about the roof on the kitchen and that it was in bad shape. We specifically had him look at that as well. And what it turns out, when they put that Vinahood in there 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they just bolted it to 2x6 rafters and put no structural supports under it. And when I say bolted it, they bolted it to 2 rafters, not to the 4 or 5 that it went over. And it put significant pressure on those over the years, and where those rafters did crack were right where knots were at. So they broke, they dropped down a little bit, but he said there's no pulling away from the other
So
structure.
they could easily be reinforced. Any contractor would know how to do that.
You unbolt that Vinahood and get it off of there, and then put those back up and patch them. You'll never have another thing to worry about.
And so again, what I understand our task to be is we'll gather that information, get that from contractors, get an idea of what needs to be done in what order, what it's gonna cost. We will then give that to the city council. And the city council will make that ultimate decision on what they wanna do and what they wanna spend.
And from our perspective, and I'm gonna be, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but from the EDTA's perspective, some of the mistakes that have happened in the past have just been rush out, figure out some quick plan and then start it. And then we get halfway through a project, we run out of money, we find out it can't be used for that intended purpose, or we neglected a stakeholder and it's now not going to work for their purposes. You know, it may very well be that it comes out from a architect and designer and a contractor that the best thing to do is gut those old MUB offices, redesign them, and then that's when we need to have a conversation with your group about what does it really need to look like. And those are the kind of conversations we want to have, but it does take time, and it doesn't just happen, you know, overnight.
Well, excuse me, I'm not actually a representative of the Arts and Humanities Council. But I've told them that I would want to speak for them. Another question, I'll throw this out there. If you all want to consider this, I've asked some other people and they said, well, I think they've already spent too much money. But have we thought about asking the Cherokee Nation to help us?
That will be one of the funding sources that we talk with.
Because you're talking about an art place, and a lot of the art that comes in there for those shows are done by Cherokee artists.
So this is a few years old information, but at one point, and this is conversations that we plan to have with Councilman Callison, is there was at one point a need for them to have a place that would hold training for basket weaving and some native training skills. And in exchange for that, there was some monies available for remodeling and upkeep of those facilities. Now, I truly don't know if they figured out another solution for that or gone a different direction. But yes, they are on our list of stakeholders to talk with and see, hey, what would it look like if you still needed a facility like that? And I think they may use that. Do they still use that for their voting?
They do, yeah.
So. But any other suggestions you have, I mean, we're an open book on that.
You're already there, you're ahead of me, thanks.
We want as many helpers as we can get. Mr. Lamar, did you have a
Yes, I do. First of all, I want to say thank you again for all of you all and what work you've done to try to start the ball rolling on this. I was present at that inspection, and the way I interpreted what he said too was that all that paneling needed to come off of there to start getting that moisture to where it'll start drying out. So I don't know, right now I know there's probably no plan for doing that. But I do know that there's a lot of paneling too along the north wall underneath those windows that is buckling and coming off too. It wouldn't surprise me that you're going to find a lot of moisture everywhere in there. But I would think that one of the things that does need to be done to mitigate the potential for mold and further damage is to get that paneling stuff off those walls.
The plan right now is to have that architect come in the next 30 days and a contractor to come in to give us an idea of taking that paneling down, what that cost will do. I think I'm fixing to say what my partner here to the left is fixing to say.
Just dying to say.
You go ahead and say it.
It's a city building. If you all see the urgency in doing that, there's no reason, I mean, that is something you can do now. That is a decision the city council can make right now and do if that's what you all want to do. I mean, I agree it's something that has to be done. So if that's something that has to be done to stop the bleeding, so to be, I don't see the harm in that, but that's, again, I don't want to take over your all's authority, but you certainly have the authority, and hopefully you have the ability to do that. And so there's no reason why that can't happen.
Talking point to the mayor that we need to get something done about that.
Yeah, that's
Right.
you all.
So-
Is that in December, I think it's December the 6th, I believe, December the 6th is going to be the Santa's Village thing in there. So we're almost into September, so we're talking 90 days for that, just FYI.
Well, that's having the architect come in, look at it, and the contractor at the same time, and get that pricing back to, so that stuff
Right.
is already in the works to make a recommendation to city council to have that stuff
So
pulled off.
prior to this investigation, and I know we've talked about this, Terry, so I'll just throw it out there again. You know, we had a contractor give us a price. The original plan before 360 came in and did was we were gonna look at pulling all of that paneling off. You correct me if I'm wrong at any point, or vary from what we've discussed. Pulling that paneling off, doing an assessment, making sure the windows are good. And then the plan was originally, before we knew it was that base, was to sheetrock it and paint it, right? And that price came back, it was just an estimate that we had got on where that would, ballpark figure would be about $45,000 to $50,000 to do that. So that said, since we've had this inspection, those few times that we've been able to talk about it since then, the discussion has been entertained, maybe we don't need the sheetrock, maybe we need to look at it. I would hate for us to get in there and rush it for any reason, sympathetic to the events that we have on the calendar. We start pulling off half a wall and realize, crap, we rushed it again, and what we thought we had, we don't have all the way around. Now we're in bigger cost, now we really are in an urgent. I would really encourage that we continue to be earnest in our diligence, making sure that we do what's right, not what's fast. So I want to make sure we're ready for whatever's on the calendar, by all means, but things arise. I want to make sure that that is really what's on the walls all the way around and not just on that one side. Make sure that we don't have other issues, but I would encourage us to a little bit of patience as we get through this. I think we're searching through the right way.
I do agree with that, because I want it done and done right,
Right.
and we need to do the due diligence in planning it out.
And again, jumping out there and saying, okay, now we're gonna go tear a bunch of stuff down, could mean it's unusable for, as somebody that has done that to a house, and then looked at it and thought, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do now? So, I took all the windows out of our house when my wife she was 9 months pregnant with our twins. She walked home and said, where's the windows? I said, I'm putting new ones in. She had the twins the next week, so, I get it. But, I still think we should be more cautious with it as we move forward. But I would also add that I think it's extremely important to make sure that those monies that have come in from other gram sales that you guys as counselors have talked about, that you continue to keep that
Earmarked.
and in reserve like you
Yep.
have for these kind of projects, because as Mayor said, that was tear it down and sheetrock. If it's just pull it off, you know, the guy from 360 said, you guys may very well pull that off and find out that there's just some plaster behind it that you need to repair.
Yep.
And that could be a substantial difference, but having those monies with an already strapped budget available, I would think would be your goal.
Hopefully, knowing that there are not major structural problems, the money that you have earmarked, I think will have more of an impact now. And so that's why too, I think it's important to keep it earmarked. Because I think it'll make a huge difference.
Yep. It was very exciting to hear him say that, you know, if he had to grade that building, he'd given an A-like grading. So structurally, the building's a rock. That's what we wanted to hear.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we're adjourned.